Get your Muslim friend, or your Christian friend, or your Mormon friend, or your Baptist friend, any of these folks, and listen to them for a while. Write down what they say. Come back and just substitute the words Jesus for Muhammad, or God for Allah, and read it back to them. And when you read it back to them, watch their face. They'll get pissed off at you. They really will get upset. Well, that's the first evidence we have that the God virus is working. It shows that people are blind to their own religious faults or failings, but they can see other people's. That substitution there doesn't make sense to a Christian if you substitute Islamic terms into it. So why does a Muslim and a Christian look a whole lot alike? Because there's something going on underneath the surface. Some psychological principle, if you will, that explains it better than any other theory I've come across. It was like a flashlight in the dark when I started using the God virus metaphor. Everywhere I shone the light, things became explainable or understandable in ways that they hadn't been before. For example, why do ministers use hypnotic trance techniques in their sermons? I was going through hypnosis training when I was in my early 30s. I finished my doctoral studies, doing some postdoc work and working on hypnosis. And I was still going to church. I was married, I had 2 kids. My wife wanted to stay in church. So we were trying to go. I was trying to get the most liberal Presbyterian church I could find. But every now and then I'd have to go to my in-laws' church. And they were real fundamentalists, real evangelical. And I listened and watch his techniques. And afterwards I go up to him and say, wow, you really made me feel the Holy Spirit there. How'd you do that? Oh, I don't know. I guess it was the Holy Spirit speaking to me. Well, you know, I'm not that stupid. I know something else was going on there. And I could see he was using exactly the same hypnotic technique that I just learned in my hypnosis training last week. But he wasn't aware of the technique he was using because he hadn't been formally trained in it. He just learned it from his mentor, from some other preacher, from some televangelist he saw on television. You know, in biology, germs that can propagate and infect are going to succeed. In religion, techniques that help you infect more people are going to succeed. So, you know, the old technique of burning witches at the stake has died out. Probably because it didn't help propagate as well as, say, good preaching techniques or letting people read the Bible themselves. I mean, that was a pretty big revolution when Luther came along and let people start reading the Bible when they weren't allowed to before or weren't encouraged to before. Another question I had was what makes people oblivious to the inconsistencies of their religion when they can see that of other people's religion? They're blind to it. So those are 2 questions that I was really driven to try and answer in my studies. So the purpose of the God virus is to suggest a comprehensive method of explaining and understanding religion and show how it can lead to practical applications on the part of non-theists, spiritual people, and the less religious to deal with religion in our society and world. I am an atheist, but I don't care if somebody has a God belief. It doesn't matter to me. What I'm up here today is not to convert anybody to my way of thinking. What I want to do is educate people to the manipulations that go on when you walk inside of a church or a mosque or a temple. That's my goal, not to turn anybody into an atheist. I don't care. What I do care is we need to be aware of how we're being manipulated by other people. So, I want to give you some practical things today, and I'm going to begin with the concept, the idea that logic is not the answer. How many of you have gotten into an argument with a religious person? Now keep your hands up, keep your hands up. How many of you won the argument? In their mind, not in your mind, in their mind. Okay, I see 3 hands that stayed up. Congratulations. The rest of you losers out there, you must not have the technique that these 3 people have. Well, isn't it interesting that we will beat our heads against that wall trying to convert people or show them the stupidity of their logic, and it doesn't work. You rarely actually convert anybody through logic because logic is not the answer. We're going to learn tonight why logic is not the answer. I think when we continually and over again are argue and try to use logic with religious people, it says more about us than it does about them. If you're going to argue with somebody and tell them how stupid they are and use your incredibly good logic, which I'm sure is good, don't get me wrong, you're probably right. I wouldn't be standing up here talking to you if you weren't. But it's not working. So if you hit your head against that brick wall enough times, sooner or later, you're probably going to stop doing it. But I see us non-theists, we don't stop. We keep doing it. So we ruin our relationships with our family, with our spouses, with our children, with our parents. I want to figure out a better way. I want to figure out how to go around that wall rather than try to go through it. And that therein lies part of what I'm trying to convey tonight. And well, I try to convey in the last 4 chapters of the God Virus. Kurt Lewin, the great social psychologist, said, "There's nothing more practical than a good theory." So what I'm going to suggest to you tonight is a good theory. A theory like gravity, the theory of gravity. It's just a theory, of course, but it seems to explain quite a few things. Evolution is just a theory, but it sure does help us predict a whole lot of things about biology and about propagation of species, propagation of the H1N1 virus, and all that sort of stuff. The standard theory of physics is just a theory, but it sure explains a hell of a lot of stuff. I get kind of irritated with this just a theory stuff, so nobody's laughing about this, so you do know what I mean, the implications here. All right, good. So, what you should be able to do after you're finished listening to me tonight is you should be able to go out and test this theory that I'm going to give you and see if it works. And if it works, you can go back and say, Darrel, that's a good theory. If it doesn't work, you can say, Darrel's crazy. He's just one of those weird atheists, doesn't know what he's talking about. And so you'll have to decide for yourself whether this is a good theory or not. I call this theory the exorcist test. How many of you have seen The Exorcist? Oh, good. A lot of you have seen The Exorcist. All right. If this theory works, then you will be able to see and create observable behavior. I want you to be able to compare how somebody looks, sounds, talks, and behaves when they're infected with the God virus and when the God virus is expressing itself. Now, how do you look, sound, and behave when you have a cold? How do you behave, Alex?
Kind of tired.
Tired?
Sore voice.
Sore voice? Sneeze? Cough? Okay. So your behavior changes when you've got a cold.
Yeah.
So I can see you today, you don't appear to have a cold today. Okay. And I can say, this is the behavior that Alex has when he doesn't have a cold. Then I could inject him with a cold virus or whatever and get you really miserable. And I could see, okay, here's the way he behaves when he's got a cold. Then I could wait till he's finished with a cold, and I could look again and see the behavior he has without a cold. In the experimental design, this is called an A-B-A design. You have an A condition, which is usually a baseline condition. Then you do a B condition, which is usually the treatment, controlling all variables, or as many as you possibly can. You look at the B condition, you measure it, you observe it, then you try to go back to the A condition, and so that you can compare both sides to the B. And that's what we would do with Alex if he was suffering from a cold. Well, in the exorcist test, it looks something like this. Have you ever seen somebody that seemed perfectly normal until you ask them about their religion? And all of a sudden they look like this. You go along and you ask somebody,